Buonasera, benvenuti all'Istituto Italiano di Cultura a Los Angeles. For those joining us today for the first time, good evening. My name is Emanuele Amendola. I'm the director of the Italian Cultural Institute in Los Angeles. Welcome. And maybe turn your phone on silent if you can. So, I'm really happy to see you so numerous here tonight. Actually, when I was standing at the entrance, I noticed that some of you are dressed at their fashionable best, and or dressed to impress. And I would say today is a very appropriate day to do so, as tonight we present Fashion Panorama, the Italian New Wave, an exhibition that has been curated by VOGUE Italia for the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, and we are really proud to host here at our institute in Los Angeles. There are few undeniable facts in this world. One of them is that the sky is blue. Second is that Americano is not real coffee. And the third is the impact and influence that Italian fashion had and continues having on the global stage. And this is exactly what this exhibit is about, and about the qualities that characterize Italian fashion: creativity, tradition, craftsmanship. And we will see how the new generation of designers, while having their own individual visions, will still have a dialogue and a relation with everything that made in Italy famous in the world. Our evening tonight starts with a panel discussion, followed by a Q&A session with our panelists, so you will have the opportunity to ask your questions to our speakers, and then we will open the exhibit, and you will be able to enter the creative worlds of designers such as Act Number 1, Giselle, Cormio, Lessico Familiare, Magliano, Marco Lambaldi, Medea, Panconesi, Pasqualetti, and Sheena. And I wanted to mention each and every one of them because unfortunately we were not able to fly them all to Los Angeles. There are many, but they've been working very closely with us and with VOGUE Italia for this exhibition, and especially they gave us pieces that were not on display in any of the other stops of this traveling exhibit, so we are very grateful to them. I am particularly thrilled to introduce our panelists for tonight. Emanuele Coccia, who is an Italian philosopher and author. His latest book is titled La vita delle forme, filosofia del reincanto, and it examines the intersection of fashion and philosophy, and was co-written with no less than Alessandro Michele, who is the former creative director of Gucci and the current creative director of Valentino. As you know, we always like to create a link between Italy and the United States in every event that we present. So I am particularly grateful to our second panelist for joining us this evening, TJ Walker, who is a talented designer himself, co-founder of Cross Colors, and a lecturer at top fashion schools in the United States, including Parsons and FIDM. The discussion will be moderated by Elisa Pervinca Bellini, who is the Senior Fashion News and Sustainability Editor at VOGUE Italia. She also played a very significant role in putting together this exhibit, and I want to say grazie Pervinca, and grazie Tommaso Bruno also, who spent the last couple of days with us setting up the display that you will soon see. Before we dive in our program, I would like to welcome on stage Raffaella Valentini, the Consul General of Italy in Los Angeles, for her opening remarks. Everything we do here at the Italian Cultural Institute is done in close collaboration with our Consulate General, with the Italian Trade Agency. And I wanted to say that since arriving to Los Angeles, Consul's Valentini motto has been that LA is not just about cinema, and I guess that tonight is a perfect testament to this vision. So thank you all once again for being here tonight. Grazie mille, enjoy the program. Raffaella, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Emanuele. Good evening, everybody. Buonasera. So glad to see so many people tonight for this very special event. And to answer to Emanuele, yes, I dressed my best tonight with all Italian brands. This is, I cannot do a different way. So I'm the Consul General of Italy. I love Italian fashion. You may not know, but fashion has always been following me since my childhood, and keeping a copy of VOGUE Italia magazine was a way for me to have my comfort food. So seeing all these beautiful models wearing these amazing dresses, this original outfit in different colors and shapes, that gave me the idea of the possibility to dream bigger and to break free from a daily routine. Dream bigger is something that everyone is looking for, and here I am. As a diplomat representing my country all over the world, in a certain way, I realized my dream. And I'm so lucky that my dream has a strict link with fashion. It is true that there is an intricate relationship between fashion, Italian fashion, and diplomacy. I'm a diplomat, and I speak about Italian fashion today because Italy's fashion industry has long been and is still synonymous with luxury, style, and sophistication, serving as a power tool for soft diplomacy. Through fashion, Italy communicates its cultural heritage and its ability in innovating, promotes its national identity, building bridges with other countries. So, isn't this pure diplomacy? Yes, it is. Italy is currently the fourth international supplier of the US in the fashion industry. And the total value of Italian exports to the US in the industry totaled $11.81 billion in 2023. Opportunities for Italian companies in the world of fashion and luxury are growing as US customers are increasingly attracted by the combination of quality, design, and prestige that the Made in Italy brand offers. To meet this request, the Italian Consulate General of the Italian Consulate here in Los Angeles, together with the trade agency in Los Angeles, have organized last January a working group for Italian entrepreneurs to discuss current market trends and opportunities in the LA and Californian industry. And I'm glad to see many of these entrepreneurs here tonight with us. We are also developing an investor guide on the US West Coast to support Italian enterprises, also in these very important sectors. On the occasion of the Italian National Day that we will celebrate on June the 2nd, the Italian school Accademia del Lusso will run a very special fashion show to celebrate and promote Italian emerging designers, presenting for the first time here in Los Angeles their unique creation. But fashion is not only business, it's also art, a fundamental part of our culture. It is part of the Italian DNA. Brands like Prada, Armani, Versace, Ferragamo, Dolce & Gabbana, Bottega Veneta, just to name a few, have made history in the last century. Their most iconic clothes and accessories are pieces of artwork, as Emanuele was just mentioning, an integral part of our contemporary culture. And Vogue, with these great images of fashion, has been telling this story very well over the last decades. Mentioning examples from Fashion Panorama exhibit itself, I would like to recall Marco Rambaldi's dedication to inclusive fashion, Magliano's reinvention of wardrobe classics and his pioneering vision of masculinity, Sheena's forward-thinking nonconformity. So these modern designers paint a vibrant picture of Italian creativity and unveil a side of our country which is not so known yet. Dear friends, dear guests, fashion is a language that creates itself in clothes to interpret reality, as Karl Lagerfeld once said. And I hope that you will enjoy tonight's discussion and the exhibition as a way to combine dream and reality. Thank you for joining us again, and now I leave the floor to our speakers for the panel discussion. Enjoy the evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for inviting us. It's a pleasure for us as a team of VOGUE Italia to be here to present somehow our designer, because we feel this part of the designer of Made in Italy as part of our family, because we selected them together with Emanuele 3 years ago. And still we are happy to see that most of them, all of them, they are successful also now in terms of market, in terms of contest. They are supported, and they are a family. But we will have the chance to speak a little bit later about this. So yes, this exhibition is here after being in Riga, after being in Friburgo, in Detroit, and every city that hosted our project, Fashion Panorama, offer a new perspective on the same designer. So for us it was also interesting to see all the step this exhibition is doing around the world, and it was very interesting for us also to see how we were, let's say, involved, and how we were hosted with so much love here in Los Angeles. So thank you. And I will ask to start from Emanuele. So how do you select, how the designer were selected for this exhibition? Why they are these 10 designers part of this exhibition?
So the idea was to give a sort of image of the new Made in Italy. But before, also giving you an idea of the 10 designers that you will look at the slides, I would like to stress why it's so important to make an exhibition or speak about fashion in a cultural institute. Fashion is not just one of the disciplines or artistic discipline that exist. In a way, it's like the condensation of a culture, in the sense that you think about that, the fashion was born, it's not just the contemporary form of customs or of garments. It's a specific form of art that was born at the beginning of the 20th century, when the European and the US avant-garde started to say that art should coincide with life. Now, when you have this program that art should really be the same with life, a garment becomes a sort of special object, a Trojan horse that allows you to transform every single life into the space where art can manipulate life itself. Why? Because the garment, the clothing are like the most universal artifact that exists. Everybody should wear something every single day, all the day long. So art is like everywhere. And the second point is that a garment, unlike other artworks, like a painting, like a film, doesn't presuppose a sort of contemplative relationship. So you don't have to look at the garment, you have to take it and put on your body, and you have to transform it into your skin. So in a way, a garment is sort of Picasso that you have to transform into your skin. So this is why when you have the program of making art be the same or coincide with life, then fashion become, in a way, the art par excellence. And fashion is, in a way, the avant-garde that managed to accomplish this program. That's why, and why it's important to make this like a small introduction, because then every single designer, and those 10 designers, they're not just artists that propose like their own vision of whatever, or their expression of their single personality. Every single fashion designer is in a way someone who has a vision about human life in general. So a fashion designer is at the same time a leader and a witness of a sort of moral revolution, because a garment is a formal life condensed on the body of millions of people. So, and this new generation of designers, in a way, are the witness of a moral revolution or a moral novelty, an anthropological revolution that took place in Italy, let's say in the last, not just in Italy, but especially in Italy in the last 20 years. And it's important to stress that they are not, also one of the reasons that, pushed us, or VOGUE and the Italian ministry and myself, was to also to invite people to stop speaking just about the old masters, but to see that there are a new generation of French forces that in a way are operating today. I would like just to name a couple of aspects of this, let's say, moral revolution that took place thanks to those designers. The first point is the fact that they, in a way, show that we are living in a post, let's say, national, post-ethnic world, because most of them, they condense in their body different belongings. Act number 1 was founded by Chinese or by Italo-Chinese and Italo-Azerbaijan designers, and of course, traditional merging. Giselle is someone who is condensing in her practice, also tradition from Cameroon and Italy, but also Cormio is a brand founded by someone who was born in the States, and she's also merging the US tradition and the Italian tradition. And that's why, for instance, because of this, they are redescribing a new cultural geography where Italy becomes not just one country, but a space where a lot of identities try to find a new harmony. This is also why the political issues are so important. I think of Medea and their production, which is very often also collaborating with some ONG. The second point is the technical innovation, the search for new materials. And again, I think of Giselle, who is using, for instance, hemp, which is a new material in fashion, at least, but also Pasqualetti, Nicola Pasqualetti, who started as a designer of jewelry, who made necklaces made of parfum buttercups and macrame. Again, also Medea, who is a brand who has this sort of very strong relationship with art. They collaborated also with Cattelan, with toilet paper, but also with musicians. So this is one point. The third point is the fact that all those brands witness a new idea of modernity. As you know, the made in Italy, especially in design, was important in the last century, starting from the 60s, because actually of a different idea of modernity. In a way, Italy was a country which had a huge delay in modernization, and designers in the 60s managed to transform this delay into a resource. So Italian modernity was all a delayed and incomplete modernity, and that's why when you think about that, all the designers in the 60s, in the 70s, they had a very strong relationship with craftsmanship, with artigianato. In this case, of course, this technical innovation and this attention to natural materials is also a sign of this attention to craftsmanship and to local production, but it's also a way of rethinking or renewing the very idea of time and history. In which sense? In the sense that all the designers have, I would say, a much freer, much more, freer relationship with the past. They are using a lot of like curtains, tablecloths, crochet. I think of Marco Rambaldi, for instance, of Cormio again. And this is something which, since Panconesi, who started as an archaeologist, this is interesting. Why? Because in all those designers, there is this idea that which is totally revolutionary for fashion, because we are accustomed to think of fashion as something that pushes us to free ourselves from the past. Fashion is like the call of the new, of the newness. So we have to abandon all what is past and embrace what is new. In all those designers, the idea is not that we have to free ourselves from the past, but that we have to free the past itself from being past in a way, and to find a new relationship with the past, which is extremely Italian if you think about that. So Italy, I wrote a book with Alessandro Michele, and Alessandro is a Roman, so someone who was born in Rome, and he kept saying when we were speaking that Rome is amazing because it's sort of a huge Atlantis. You are walking on past generation, and you cannot make as if there was no past. You have to invent a free relationship to the past. And Rome is amazing because it's a city, perhaps one of the how can I say, it's a city that pushes you to find contemporaneity between the Colosseum and a McDonald's. So, and this is the point of all those designers, that they think of contemporaneity not as something which has to reject the past, but as the invention of a sort of composition of different times. That's why, I have just 2 points, that's why, because of this new composition of time and history, they also redesigning the silhouette. You will see then in the exhibition, we have the garments, and the silhouette is not, let's say, an harmonious one, it's a very composite, a very heterogeneous silhouette. All the designers, I think of Sheena, of Act Number 1, they are breaking the silhouette. All the garments are composed of pieces that come from different time, but also from different genres and styles. And also from the point of view of gender, they are rethinking gender in the sense that gender is not monolithic. Gender is a composition, an heterogeneous composition, because also, if you think about it, what is gender? Gender is a formula that allows to a body to have an access to another body. So through the gender, we are all cyborgs because we have to compose our body with another body. So that's why they are trying to redefine the body as a composite body. But this idea, and I will end up with that, it's not just a shallow idea of inclusivity. It's the very intuition, the very insight that a garment should not, in a way, confirm our identity. A garment should, in a way, enlarge, extend our identity. A garment is something that allows us to be our dream, in a way, to be something more that our body is. And that's why, even from the point of view of the gender or the identity, every garment should allow us to, in a way, to enter in contact with other bodies, with other identities, and to produce a new idea of community.
And yeah. And so, after I visited a little bit the exhibition with us, what do you think, DJ, with the exhibition? Did you feel the poetry that Emanuele was speaking about?
After visiting the exhibition, I actually had a cheat sheet because I was sent the designers beforehand, so I got a chance to kind of see them online and then on their social media. But after going into the room and actually seeing the pieces, it's definitely a different experience seeing the pieces up front. You know, typically with just, you know, being in the US, you think of Italy definitely from the standpoint of luxury items. You definitely think of that. But when you see this collection and you see the collection or how they put the different designers together in the room, I think you'll get another vantage point for Italy in terms of how the designers are now looking at the pieces as well. Not that the luxury items are not still high on the priority list, but this gives you another vantage point of what you can expect to come from Italy as well, too.
And the designer in the exhibition, they created in these 3 years from the beginning of the project something like something that seems a community. So they write each other, they have a WhatsApp group, they collaborate during the fashion week and during the normal year, let's say, during the business as usual. And so I wanted to, grazie. So I wanted to ask about the community, the sense of community to both of you. So Emanuele, that you are part of this community of creatives because you were there from the really beginning, and so you saw them growing and the relationship growing during these the last 3 years. How do you think about it? How do you feel this sense of community? And then I want to know your experience as a community, because as a designer, first of all, as a creative, but also as a professor, you see the young generation growing and creating a community here in Los Angeles. So what's your feeling about it?
So first of all, I would say that there is something that allowed them to immediately to sort of recognize themselves, which is the fact of I said it in a rough way, but to be excluded by, to recognize that they are very good, really good, that they are represent the novelty, but still fashion journalists or media, I mean, except for VOGUE, of course, and people, they don't pay enough attention to these new brands, and all the people are speaking a bit, I mean, they are amazing, and all brands are extremely impressive, important, but there is a lack of recognition of what is happening today, and that fashion is not just those old brands, but a lot of totally new designers. So one reason of this, the facility of, how can I say, the fact that immediately they become a community was this feeling of having an enemy or having being excluded. But then what is interesting is that the fact that what was extremely interesting, even in the presentation we had in Tirana, the very first edition, but also in Rome, because we did a sort of, there was in Rome last year, where I think there was like Stati Generali della Moda, it was like sort of the most important fashion designer was invited to speak, and also in this case it was quite amazing because every single fashion designer had 1 hour to speak, and then the younger one that for 1 hour. So Italy is not a country for young people still, but then they realized that they have a common heritage of new stories, new lives that are not represented, but that represent the majority of the people. So this is, I think, something that gave them force and strength. The fact that actually they really embody a new phase, a new moral phase, a new anthropological phase, a new ethnographic or demographic phase of the country, which is difficult to see on, let's say, on television or main media, but it's like the street reality of daily life. So this is, and they are in a way at the same time as every good fashion designer, the interpreters, the one who give to those new realities a voice, but also the, how can I say, the ones who prepare the future. Because if fashion is interesting, it's also because they are not just representing the present, they are in a way allowing the future to become real. So that's why I think, I mean, to be a fashion designer is an incredible, how can I say, you have a sort of atomic bomb in your hands, and you can change the customs of millions of people. It's huge. I mean, it's not that, I mean, now I'm saying something bad about paintings. I love painting, but when you're doing a painting, you're, I mean, expecting that someone is looking at the painting and then perhaps is changing slowly the way how he, she, they are seeing reality. When you're doing a garment, so you're expecting that someone is changing immediately his or their way of life. It's huge. So, and this feeling of common power, of empowering together, is also an important element of community. I don't know what's your experience, TJ.
Well, I definitely think that in terms of community, I think society now is, I know in the US, people are driven by the internet. They're driven by social media. And it's very important to have your likes, it's very important to have your groups, it's very important to have, and I think that kind of, in a way, is that way that people, especially designers these days, I've been teaching for over 20 years, and so I've seen the kind of change in the students themselves, but they definitely really depend a lot on social media. And when they have their designs, they create them themselves, not really knowing that much about the industry itself and how the process works, but they know they can get a garment and they can put something on it and maybe somebody will like it. So with that, they're forming their group, they're forming their community. So with that, you see how they actually form their little communities within themselves, and they grow those communities with those likes too as well. So for them, they're empowered. They're empowered to think they are a designer. They're empowered to think that they can definitely conquer the world with those kind of things too. But I think in what I find is that they usually come back to school. They come to school because they don't have that foundation. They don't have that grounding. So they need to find some way of actually scaling their business, because they'll have something that goes, but it doesn't go quite far enough. So I think just society in general, and again, for the US, we depend so much on social media. It's kind of conditioned people to think of creating their own communities, and they feel safe there because they're liked.
Absolutely. And part of this community, most of the designer, part of the collection, and I think also in LA, this can be a parallel situation. One of the aspects that is important for the young generation is sustainability. So how we have seen you will see in the exhibition that there is upcycling over there, there is a new consciousness of what are you using, how much you are creating and reproducing, how you collaborate with the artisans. So it's not just sustainability, I mean nature-wise, but also ethically conception of sustainability. So what is your feeling in the LA scene on the young generation you are teaching to, how they perceive this concept?
Definitely, I see a change in the designs and the design aesthetics as well within the classroom. We actually have in our, and a great example of that is that I teach at LA Trade Tech, and we have a fashion show at the end, and it's just the students that have gone through the program, they usually go through and they have to create looks for these different categories. But to be honest with you, the school, to me, and this is just for the school, but the school to me doesn't change quick enough to address what the students want. And with that, it's very apparent because we as instructors had to go in and look at the products, and we looked at the different categories, but then we see items up there that don't fit into the categories that the instructors expecting it to fit into, because students have created sustainable upscale garments. But that really wasn't a category, but they did it anyway because that's what they see, and that's what they want to see, and that's what they feel is design. And I see it very apparent that the students and the young creatives, they want to see these things that are more unique, that are going to be not so, forget the description, but fast fashion, but something that's going to be more individual, something's unique to them. And one piece that they get is going to be for them. It's special, and they create it. And then that means that they can give it to somebody else. It might look almost the same, but it's different, and that person can pick out their unique piece. So those kind of things are things that people are looking for these days. They're looking for those things that make them unique, the things that have quality still put into them, but you still have to have that uniqueness to create that individuality, because they've been so bombarded by pieces that are alike, the same, and so many of them. And this leans back into sustainability, because to reduce the production itself, but also it leads into the sense of having something definitely unique as well, by using people. And also here in Los Angeles too, a huge thing is vintage shopping, and people looking for clothes that are used and they reuse them as well. So those kind of things are the things that are kind of ingrained into the design and the aesthetics here a lot.
So if I may add something, it's extremely important what TJ said. And also something similar. First of all, you will see that a lot of garments, the unique garments, also because they are produced, just put together or applying the rules or the techniques of haute couture to used garment, upcycled garment. But what is interesting, what I want to say is that in Italy a little bit, but also in France, we are witnessing to a new, because of this need of creating unique garments, is it as if we were witnessing to a divorce between high fashion and ready-to-wear? You know that history of fashion was made, or what was in, one of the most important events in Europe, at least, of the fashion world was this kind of marriage that took place in the 60s between prêt-à-porter and haute couture, high fashion and ready-to-wear. It was extremely important. Why? Because when brands like Yves Saint Laurent or Courrèges, they opened lines for ready-to-wear, they were like unifying aesthetically society. Suddenly, fashion was not just a discourse of elite or high bourgeoisie, it was just the style of all the society. So extremely important. But today, we're witnessing the bad consequences on the commercial and ecological level of this unity between high fashion and ready-to-wear, which is the fact, as you said, that you have a huge amount of the same garment for everybody. And that's why the designers now, they don't want, you say that the schools are they're like a little bit retarded, but in France, for instance, or there are students that once they do not want to work anymore in the big brands because they want to create just unique garments, and they are creating, that's why it's interesting, they're creating a new commercial model, which is, for instance, to work much more with art galleries. Because if you think about that, if you want to create a unique garment, then you don't need like a retail distribution system. You can sell it in a gallery, and that's it. So it's from this point of view, I think that those are, because of what you said, extremely interesting times, because this new generation is trying to also invent a new commercial model, not just a new aesthetical one, but a new way to, not just to produce, but also to sell and distribute garments.
Right, right, and that just brings me back to the exhibition, because to me the exhibition represents that. It represents that in the terms of the artisans that have done it, because they seem like artists, you know, even more so than designers in that room, and even the way it's displayed too, like it's an art show. You know, and I think it's very appropriate because that looks like art in the room. And I think everyone's going to be very excited about seeing it too as well. But it, again, gives a different vantage point of Italy, but I think it just gives a different vantage point of the young creatives today in terms of how they're thinking, not just in Italy, but globally. I see it happening all around the world.
You were mentioning before the vintage, and thinking about somebody working in the West Coast, I was thinking that maybe the designer on show, even if they are in Italy and not in near San Francisco, they are somehow thinking like Paul Dillinger, the head of design of Levi's, that he was saying, I want to create now the vintage of the future. So something that is created now, but like an art, a piece of art will stay forever, will be used forever, and will be a piece of art to give to the young generation, to your daughter, to your son, and to somebody else that they will enjoy. So yes, I was just thinking because, yeah, it's true about the vintage. And
But what is interesting is that vintage is not, in this case, it's not just it's not just witnessing a new ecological sensibility. Is something which is totally new for fashion, and you will see also in this exhibition, is something that shows a very different relationship toward past and the idea of family. In a way, fashion was, at least in Europe, the instrument of breaking every single relationship with your family, with your grandmother, grandfather, with your parents. And here you have a lot of designers who are using not just the garments of their grandparents, but also like daily life objects, napkins, or which is interesting also from another point of view, because when you are freeing the past objects, it's in a way the opposite of ceramics. In a way, what do I mean? I mean that so. Italian designers have, since Gio Ponti, a very special relationship with ceramics. Why? Because ceramics is, if you think about that, the first art that tries to put stories on every single daily use object, and which is decorating, in a way, every single act of your life with stories. That's why Italian designers are obsessed, from Gio Ponti to Alessandro Michele, with ceramics. But in this case, it's not that the designers are trying to decorate the object with stories. They are taking past objects in order to decorate your life. So, which is interesting. So the past becomes an instrument to give to present life a new depth or a new story. So from this point of view, it's also interesting, this different relationship to family. To me, it was a shock, because I myself was like, when I was young, I was trying to destroy my relationship with the family. For them, it's different. I suppose that also for your students or the scene here.
Yes, it is different. And when you're talking, I'm thinking of vintage, and I'm thinking of history, and I'm thinking of those things, and I think of, you know, being in Italy. I mean, that's a different history from the U.S. You have so much more to pull from. You have so much more that you can gather from there, you know, as opposed to here. I think, and I think that can be somewhat of a problem for the creatives here sometimes too, because I think they feel like this is where they pull from, you know, many times. But Italy, if, you know, I'm just thinking of me. If I'm there, I would explode almost, because I just think it's just too much. It's a lot to pull from, and that is real history to me. You know, when you have that type of ground, you have that type of foundation. So you can't negate it. You can't think that you won't use it or can't use it just because the pieces in the room next door, although they're new, they're fresh, they're different, they still reflect where they came from, to me, which is very important, you know. And I think that's the connector to me. It still needs to reflect where you came from. And I say that because a lot of young creatives, they create, but they don't understand where it came from or where it can come from. And I think that's still the part that's missing typically. I know with a lot of the young that come to me, because they're so accustomed to going to Google and just looking it up and things like that too, and sometimes they don't. But I think it's very important that you get the history of something and go forward from there and bring it forward with you, you know, with that too as well. Yeah.
But history can be tricky in the sense that for a long time, the past was innately a sort of huge weight that impedes you to think of the present and the future. What is interesting in this case of the generation of designers is that they have a totally different relationship with it's like, I don't know if you have ever been in Rome. There is this amazing building which is Teatro Marcello, where you see like a Roman basement, and then someone the Pope built like a Renaissance style palace. So this courage of mixing together like times that do not have a relationship together. This is like what is freeing the past also for the present. This is what they have. The idea that you can have a non-historical relationship with the past that frees the past and frees you also.
And also, speaking about community, speaking about the fashion at the forefront, there is a sense in the designers on show, and maybe we can listen also to your experience about the sense of being activist. So creating a clothes, you can, and it's a piece of art that you wear, you change the way you feel and the way somebody from the next moment is dressing up in some way, is changing his perception and other people's perception. So some of the designers we will see in the exhibition, and you have selected, they are activists in the way that they are at the forefront for diversity, for inclusivity, for the casting, but also collaborating, as you were saying before, with ONG for people. So yeah, I wanted just in order to close, maybe a comment on how fashion can be, for sure, I mean, the way where values are spread around, but also designers are somebody that do in the first, let's say, in the forefront of.
Go first, and then.
So for me, my business partner and I, Carl Jones, back in the 90s, we started a brand, Cross Colors. And this brand, its intention was to do just that. We didn't know how powerful it would be, and still is, basically, because it's still going. But the intent was to do something that had not been done before, and it was to identify what we thought was a neglected category of people who were buying a lot of product but were not represented. So we did something where we used our T-shirts as our promotional tools. We put the statements on the shirts, and those things were like "Stop the Violence," "Clothing Without Prejudice," "Love Seasonal Color," those kind of things too. But still, we were doing it on garments that people could purchase. They weren't that expensive. They were nicely priced, but they could still attain them and actually wear those things and promote that. Today, I see those kind of things with the brands that the youth are doing or the designers are doing, and not just the young designers, but designers in general, because they want to see transparency in all parts of the business and transparency in the message. They want to know who did it, why you did it, what is it made out of, all these things too. All these things are very important. So I think all those things are, if you look at it, statements Those are statements. Those are things you say. Those are things you have to speak to when you do a brand. Because it's not just about doing something that's going to sell. It's about doing something that's going to answer the questions that the people are asking. And that's what people want to see. And I think your clothes have to do that. They have to speak to those things too as well. At least it doesn't have to speak to all of them, but it needs to speak to some of them. And there should be some kind of give back component to it as well, which really helps support people wanting to support you as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in a way, the relationship between fashion and activism began with the punk movement, who were the first to, instead of writing manifests or texts or books, they just wore differently. And they, in a way, put in a garment a huge power of making a statement. But today, from there, I mean, from there to TJ, what has changed also because of what you said and what you did, it's the fact, I think, that so the punk movement were a secessionist movement in a way. Today we are witnessing, I think, the idea that fashion should not be activist in the sense of just revolt or rebellion, but in a more constructive sense in two aspects. First of all, there is now the consciousness that when you are activist through fashion, when you are producing through the garments a statement, you are simultaneously occupying the public space. You're not just speaking, you are transforming the sensitive reality of the space. So the space is different if you are doing garments in a special way. And secondly, you are not just dividing the society, you're not producing rebellion, you are producing community. And the garment, an activist garment, is not just saying no to a former proposer, it says yes to a new community, which is in a way, which is built through this garment. So from this point of view, I really think that those generation, the experience you did, is also witnessing of a new idea of activism through fashion.
Absolutely. So I think you will be curious to see the exhibition. I hope so. We hope so. But before, if there is any question, we were thinking about to dedicate a part of this panel with these two amazing guests to the discussion. So if you have any question.
Dover Street Market and how they are revolutionizing all this new brands, new artists, X this, X that, designer, etc., etc. Am I on the same page with what you're saying? In a way, the Dover Street Market, Japan, New York,
Yes.
Los Angeles, they're doing this art exhibit around the fashion.
Exactly.
And it's drawing droves of people.
Mm-hmm. And two, you got to think also that, just as you mentioned before, the image too. Images are really, you can easily now, or much easily now, apply images to your fabric or to your textiles and those kind of things too. So people can easily do that digitally. And you can put anything on a garment now, basically, based on the fabric that you're using. So that gives you another vehicle to do expressions, but also be more in terms almost like art-like in terms of your output of your garments.
Yeah, I would say that, of course, Dover Street Market and Adrian and Ray were extremely important, and they are, by the way, opening in Paris in 2 days again. But we are now in a further stage in the sense that now what is happening is, first of all, like here, what Emanuele did is there are shows about or exhibitions about fashion which are now, I mean, you know that museums of fashion or exhibitions of fashion started very late. The first was in the 80s. It's a scandal. I mean, and the idea that now the Hammer Museum will do an exhibition of fashion, the idea that now it's normal, not just normal, but people want to see exhibition of contemporary fashion in museums is changing everything, because it's like It's giving to people the idea in a more sensitive way that fashion is an art, not just a business element. And secondly, now in Paris, for instance, you have not just museums, you have art galleries who are exhibiting garments. And this is totally new. I mean, the fact that when you are entering in, I don't know, in an art gallery in a city, in an important city, you're not just looking at paintings, sculptures, but at garments. This is the sign of what you said, of the fact that garments are now a different object, or that they have a different status. Because Davestit garment was, in a sense, at the same time a shop and a museum. Now we are multiplying the idea that, first of all, they are object of art. Of course, you can buy it like art, but they are witnessing something different. And as Elisa was saying, then of course, if the consequence of this shift are huge, because of course you claim that a work of art is eternal, and does not to like disappear in 2 years. For instance, this is something implicit or not yet, but it's happening.
Thank you. It seems to me that when you talk about the history of fashion, it strikes me as there was a time when it was a lot of emotional armor. I mean, fashion is about a feeling, and then it seemed like there was a period of invitation, emotional invitation, and then do you think we're going back into the emotional armor, or is there a vulnerability in the future of fashion?
You're the master. I'm a student.
No. You know, I think there is I definitely think there's more of that coming in terms of the emotional armor for fashion. But I also think that, you know, people are definitely tired of imitating. That's what I think. And I just see that with the younger generation of designers that are coming out, that are stepping to me and asking me, you know, where do I go from here and what do I do next? And they really don't want to do anything like the other person, or they don't want to do that many pieces of that thing as well. But they want some kind of something attached to it, and it's typically emotion, because they want to be able to pull the heartstrings of someone, or some kind of desire of someone when they're creating that thing, whatever it is. So I definitely think that's coming back. How much is coming back? I don't know, because I think the fashion industry is a slow-moving machine. And I say machine because that's what it is in a lot of ways. And it's the reconditioning of the consumer that has to happen too as well, along with that, to make it even more appetizing for it, or even to make it more lucrative for those that want to go down that road too as well.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, as you said, fashion was always about emotions and feelings, but emotions are not always the same, in the sense that for a long time, fashion was about distinction. So I have to tell to the rest of the people that I'm totally different from you. It was like dandyism or snobbery. Today, especially after let's say, since at least 10 years, you know, 10 years ago, there was a huge movement that was branded with the term of normcore. And the idea was actually fashion is no more used to express, it was the end of the hipster movement. Hipster were like people who like just exaggerated the idea of distinction, producing a totally conformist culture. But then the idea then was, and I think it's still today present. The idea is that you're using a garment not to distinguish your identity from the other, but to create a bridge. So you do not want to say exactly what you are, but you do want to say, to communicate to other people that there is something in common between you and the other person, which allows you and the other to produce a sort of community. And that's why, for instance, you will see there, but a lot of garments are multi-layered. They are made out of different pieces of identities or different materials, different silhouettes of the past. So the idea is that you have to be, the more composite you are, the more plural you are, the more community you can get around you, or the more community you can get in. So that's the point. So of course it's emotion, but it's a totally different feeling, a totally different emotion, I mean, in comparison to 10 or 15 or 20 years ago.
Any other question?
I'm wondering, when it comes to those young artists, they have a lot of challenges when it comes to fears, and especially finding their own voice. I loved what you said, they don't want to imitate anyone, and then there are categories that they still need to create themselves in order, you know, to have a place. So I'm wondering, how do you support them, or how can we support them when it comes to finding their voice and also finding their home and creating their home in the world that has already so many amazing, successful designers out there that have been around for a long time? And yeah, so, you know, like finding the balance between creating something new, creating, like, pushing the boundaries, and creating something that's lasting at the same time.
I start this way. No, this time I start, otherwise you will kill me. No, I would say that, and I speak now from my position. I was, I mean, I'm a professor. So a couple of elements are to support from the cultural sphere. I mean, for instance, journalism is extremely important. First of all, journalists should stop to speak all the time about the same couple of designers, but they also have, I must say, fashion journalists, they should a little bit improve their practice. What do I mean? I mean, normally, if a journalist is going to see, I don't know, a Picasso or Ed Ruscha exhibition, they would never ever just comment on that saying that it's feminine or it's so much spring atmosphere in this collection of. So fashion journalists are extremely, how can I say, and I'm not the present ones, but they are speaking about fashion in such a rudimentary way. So the very first element is to complexify the discourse about fashion, to in a way recognize that fashion is something so complex that of course you have to extend, for instance, the scene, because complexity needs a huge amount of designers. The second point is schools. I mean, it's a scandal that every single university in the world has a huge amount of classes on history of architecture, history of painting, history of sculpture, but there is no history of fashion classes nowhere. I mean, apart from the fashion schools, which is ridiculous. And then also, of course, books, but also museums. So that's why this exhibition is important. It's important to let people know in museums, which are like the encyclopedic spaces where a culture is like trying to define like its global phase, that we are speaking more and more on fashion and on young designers, exactly like museums are speaking about young artists, and this is a huge support for young artists. So from this point of view, I think that a cultural activity of supporting the new designers is even much more important today than a purely commercial support. But of course, I'm a professor, so that's why I'm thinking that culture is more important.
Okay, I'll make it quick. It's for me to encourage and to influence a young designer. I have them look at something that they normally don't look at, which is a book. I have them look at books. I have them look at those. I have them define what fabric is. I have them define the basics. That's where I start. Because how can you find yourself if you don't even know where you are? And they don't. So they have to look at books, pictures, something they can touch, something they can see. And that's where I start.
And because we are lucky that there are exhibitions like this one, we can go through the exhibition. For now, thank you very much to my guest. Thank you.